Welcome to Squatch-D where the truth is first before all else. Join your hosts, veteran investigator, TV personality, and author Steve Kulls, and from the Kentucky Bigfoot Research Project and the Kentucky Fried Fixes channel, Chris Bennett. Sit back and prepare to take yourself on a journey with the longest-running Bigfoot podcast, Squatch-D. Here are your hosts, Steve and Chris.
And good evening, cyberspace. Welcome to Squatch-D for today's date, January 12th, 2025. I'm your host, your guide, the Squatch Detective Steve Kulls. Along right down there, my co-host with the most, Mr. Chris Bennett. Hello, Chris.
Hey, Steve, man. It's good to see you.
Here we are again.
Yes, we are. And I'll tell you what, we got some snow this week, buddy. I mean, we had about 6 inches on the ground.
Oh,
and today,
the weather outside is frightful, but really it's quite delightful.
Was still on the ground this morning, and most of it. And then I took a nap this afternoon. I got up this evening. I told Andy, I said, "Why don't you go out there and start the car and take the broom and brush the snow off the windshield? We'll go grab some pizzas for supper, you know." And he said, "Well, there ain't no snow on the windshield anymore. It all melted off today." I looked outside. I was shocked. I mean, boom, it's all gone, basically. So,
not here.
You still got a lot of snow up there?
Oh, it's a beautiful balmy. Actually, it's a balmy 32 degrees, which is warm here for us.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You know, it was like the other day I went to work, it was like 30 degrees. I'm like, it's actually warm because the wind ain't whipping around. And, you know, we had like wind chills of 0 out there. And it was like 20 degrees, but the wind was so cold.
Yeah,
but here you are.
Breaking out the sled there for a day or two, but I didn't. Oh man, need some more hills.
Yeah,
but,
and hollers.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get to roll call. We have a hell of a show for you tonight, guys. We're gonna have some fun.
Yeah, the chat is popping over there. Look at that.
Sure is. Look at that. And we got a lot of fun tonight. We're gonna go over some of these. Bigfoot behaving badly. Bigfoot gone wild. Dun, dun, dun. And should be a very interesting discussion tonight. And boy, we have our stuff right here ready to go. And well, anyway, let's get in. First in tonight is Walter Kroll. Hello, Walter. Danny Weeks. Mick is in the house. Sorry, Mick, you're not feeling so well. We hope you're get on the mend real soon. Sharon, hello from Belgium. Hello, Sharon. Good to see you. The Bat Mom, Tessa, what's going on? And who else do we have in here? Of course, how can we forget Grasshopper? Grasshopper is in the house. Roy Longley, the lurkers. Here we are.
Thank you, Roy.
Sandra Piper, hello, Sandra. Good to see you. Gary Johnson Sr., hello. Martin Stilts, hello from Hominid Academia.
Welcome, Martin.
Restol, what's going on, Restol? Good to see you, brother. Karen Fisher, hello, Karen. Hello.
Welcome. Good to see you.
Who else we got in here? The Susie Monster. Hello, Susie. Good to see you. Mrs. Trackway Deb, what's going on? Ron Meldrum, hello, Ron. Good to see you. Jen, hello. And give Baron a pat on the head for me. What else we got? Angel Nolan, hello, Angel. Good to see you. Don Gumow Jr., Don, good to see you from Sasquatch Research, Maine. God, we bet you about the cold and stuff like that. I can't imagine what it's like in Maine. Ugly, I'm sure.
Squatchy Hills.
Squatchy Hills. Hello, El. Welcome. There we are.
Good to see you.
Always good to see new people in chat. Boris Khan. Gurney Goo Goo. Hello, Boris. You know what we haven't seen lately is, what's his name? Kilroy. We haven't seen Little Kilroy.
Little Kilroy. Yeah, well, I hope he's doing okay.
There you go.
Busy time of year for some.
Pardon me. Robert Denduven. Robert, good to see you, Robert.
Welcome.
Martin, we already said Martin. McTie, good to see you. Martin McTie. Oh, no. Martin McTie is new. We haven't said hello. Martin McTie, good to see you. Just Steve. Hello, Just Steve.
Just Steve.
Stephen Barcelo from the Cryptozoology Paranormal Museum in North Carolina.
Cool spot. I got to stop by there next time I go through North Carolina, man.
Traveling with Jim, my good friend Jim Lansing. Hello, Jim. Good to see you. Sandwich Savant. Hello, Sandwich Savant. Good to see you. Oh, look at that. There he is. Little Kilroy was lurking.
Little Kilroy. Yeah. And I get that. You know, we love our lurkers, man. I understand that. Sometimes you just don't want to chat. You want to just kind of hang back and listen.
And finally, Jay Carey just made it in under the line.
Jay, welcome. Jay. Just made it. Oh, man. Yeah.
So, good crew tonight. Good crew.
Welcome. I'm glad to see everybody. Tickled to death to have you come in here and hang out with us.
So, tonight I want to talk about Bigfoot behaving badly. Now, there have been numerous podcasts, who shall remain nameless, that, and then I Like Ike.
Oh, that's a good screen name. I like that.
That's a throwback to the 50s.
Yes. Eisenhower. Yes. I Like Ike. Welcome.
But
probably an old fart like us.
Well, back in the day, I remember the first,
walked uphill, school both ways.
And anytime I refer to somebody's age, I remember the first digital calculators.
And
I thought they were the neatest things.
Yes.
And they had little lights in them, and you used to, and they were this thick.
Yes.
And they had the little bevel ends, so they kind of sit up. And I remember you put batteries in them, or you could plug in it. I thought that, and the buttons were kind of almost like a keyboard button almost. Yeah. I thought they were the neatest things in sliced bread back then. Yeah, and then the first digital watches, which would give that same type of readout that's on the calculator, except it was red, and it would be nothing there. You'd have to push it, and it would tell you the time.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the little digital calculators. Everybody got one of those, and it was like, we could make it say Shell Oil, turn it upside down.
Yeah.
Other people were making it say other things, but you can make it say hello, and it's like
hello or hell or
yeah, it was great, man. Man.
And then the first video games, the ones with the little diodes on it. They had the baseball one and the football where you just moved a little.
Oh yeah. Yep. I can't remember what the name of that. It was like Mattel something, Super Football or something like that. It was just like little dots and beep 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 beep.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Love that. That was the thing, back in, I think it was like in grade school, a lot of people had those little things. Well, it was like that our days version of the Game Boy or the little PSP thing. Yeah.
Oh, dear Lord. It's amazing how it's like, Pong.
Pong. Oh yeah, that was the Coleco, the little football.
Oh, game. They all of them had Tandy Corporation, old Radio Shack had their own version of Pong too. Yeah. And you used to hold the thing, and it just had a lever, and you used to move the lever, and you used to bring the little slider up and down. That was it. There was no.
Yes, I remember that in the early 1970s.
And then the 80s showed up, and Activision came out with a game called Pitfall.
Yeah.
I used to jump over the pixelated crocodiles.
Oh, yeah. But, my aunt had the first Pong game that I ever saw in my life. I was just a little kid. I was like, oh, my God, this is the greatest thing. This is just awesome. A little square thing, a little square ball. Beep, beep, beep.
If you were to transport yourself, let's face it, shows like Star Trek and the advent of science fiction in the 60s and the 70s really prepared us and actually probably gave us some vision for what today is.
Right.
Maybe it started with Dick Tracy. Remember, he used to have the watch he used to talk into.
Yes.
Right. What am I wearing? A smartwatch, which
Yeah.
I can dial and talk into and have a conversation with.
Yes.
Right. So, yeah, all these things are so visionary.
Yeah, the
Unreal.
Star Trek communicator. That's where the flip phone came from, I think.
Yeah.
Those are the coolest little phones. Okay, they're dated now, but the flip phone, you can just close that thing up and stick it in your pocket.
Right.
You don't have to worry about scratching the screen.
So,
okay, all right, man. We're getting off topic.
we're getting off topic. Yep.
We got to get back to the mean Bigfoots here.
Right. Well, not necessarily the mean Bigfoots. They're just behaving badly. Not. Some of them are not bad, but some podcasts will make them out to be killers and deadly.
No.
And if that were the case, there would be a lot more people dying of Bigfoot deaths.
Oh, yeah.
That would be reported all the time.
I have firm belief that if you're out in the woods and they wanted to kill you, you would be dead for sure. Yeah. But sometimes I guess maybe they behave badly and they could use a timeout.
Yep. Well, all these Bigfoot here, they need to be put in timeout for a little bit, I think. Yeah. All right. So, of course, when did all the Bigfoot bad behavior start? Well, one of the, we could go back to Bauman, the Bauman incident talked about by Teddy Roosevelt, where two trappers had some encounters with one. They actually ended up firing shots at one. And while the one trapper, and they decided they wanted to get out of there because every time they'd come back, their camp would be disturbed with footprints in their campsites.
Right. Yeah.
And they would, they wanted out. So the one trapper said, I'm going to go collect the traps. When he came back, the other trapper was deceased with a broken neck, with all these big tracks around them. Now, the interesting thing, I think, that even if this is a tall tale, what does it tell us? It tells us that large footprints, bare footprints, were being seen in the forests as early as the 1880s. Yes. And we know there's been sightings since the 1880s, right? Because there's been historical newspaper reports, like in Powell, Vermont, 1859. Jonas Galusha ran a gubernatorial candidacy on being able to hunt down the wild man. So we know that these track evidences and stuff have been around for years, which I think is really, as an investigator, when I sit down and I look at the history of things, this makes sense. There is some connection there. It may be blurred over time. It may be a little foggy. It may be some folklorish elements added to it as well, but they are based in something, right? And the truth is always based in something. Remember, every truth is a little of this and a little of that. And the real truth is something in between, something in the middle. Right. So for me, that says so much just about the Bauman incident. It's one of the first things really I know of to mention tracks. Right.
Yeah. And these encounters from the 1800s, I mean, those people were like wilderness guys, mountain men. They would know what a Bigfoot, what a grizzly track would be, and what a black bear track would be.
Right.
And so they would realize that a Bigfoot was like a big footprint.
Yep. And Elkanah Walker wrote about them in his travel as well.
Yeah.
Let's move forward a little bit. Another bad behaving Bigfoot, if this is a tall tale, Jacko, who decided to take a nap on the railroad tracks or near the railroad tracks.
Yeah.
Again, that was the first time mentioned that, at least I know, that it was twisting tree limbs. It was breaking sticks by twisting them. And what do you know? We see a lot of the tree breaks we do see have twists involved with them.
They're twisted, yes.
So there is another interesting correlation that is really, really hard to. Sorry, no. Brian Wolf, our buddy Brian Wolf, who's in here every once in a while, texted me earlier. He says, "Yeah, I got drinking with a buddy of mine. We started talking about what would happen if Bigfoot went to Taco Bell." Right. And of course, I immediately texted him back. I said, "Well, I can sum it up in 2 words: taco hell. And he busted out laughing. He said, I busted out laughing when I read that.
Well, I don't understand. Yeah, I think it wouldn't work with his digestive system very well.
No. Anyway, so we have that. Now we move forward to probably one of the most nefarious incidents in the earlier part of the 20th century was in 1924, Ape Canyon, which is near Mount St. Helens, Washington State.
Right.
Where a group of miners who claimed to have been attacked by a group of ape men in a remote canyon. Ape Canyon was a remote area near Mount St. Helens in Washington State. The area was named it was named after the incident. I don't necessarily believe that. I read somewhere that the area, like Ape Cave, was named after the St. Helens Apes, which was a youth collective that had operated, and that was a misnomer. There seems to be a misnomer out there that Ape Canyon was named after the Fred Beck incident. I maybe the canyon was, but Ape Cave certainly was not. It was named after the St. Helens Apes.
Yeah.
But here's the interesting thing. We know about Fred Beck, but what were the other miners' names? There was Marion Smith, his son Leroy Smith, Gabe Lefevre, or Lefebvre, depending on if you want to pronounce that as French, and John Peterson were prospecting in the canyon and living in a small cabin they had built for shelter. So those are the actual names of the people. Until that day, I have not seen any really, when I see retellings of this, and even in my old time literature, I've never seen the full names put out anywhere.
No, only one we had was Fred Beck. Yeah.
So those are the 4 full names.
Well, Fred was the only one to write a book, probably the reason. Right. And actually, we theorize that his son wrote the book.
Right.
And if you want to hear the real Ape Canyon incident described by Fred Beck himself, there's an interview that Fred did with Roger Patterson.
Yep.
And it's over on Todd Prescott's channel. What is it, Steve?
The Sasquatch Archives.
Sasquatch Archives. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Really interesting video and interview. And the whole thing, Fred Beck never talks about anything weird. There's no woo injected into it or anything, unlike his book. His book injects a bunch of woo in there, talking about magical Indians and spirit arrows.
As an author, I know when you start writing a book, sometimes you take some weird turns. And it happens. It's part of the process in writing a book.
Yeah.
So what else do we got here? So during their time prospecting, Fred Beck claimed that they had multiple encounters with large hairy bipedal creatures in the surrounding wilderness. And according, one of the miners reportedly shot at one of the creatures with a rifle, striking it. The creature fell into a nearby canyon, but no body was ever recovered. I don't know if they looked for it. I got to listen to Fred's interview. Of course, I wish Fred was alive because I would have loved to interview him.
Yeah,
that would have been a very interesting interview because I would have had questions that. When I saw the Patterson interview, and I've seen other interviews where, he was interviewed by John Green and stuff like that. But there were so many damn questions missed.
Right.
And that's the problem when you're an investigator. There is a certain methodology to my questioning. And we talked a little bit about last week about the who, what, when, where, and why. And when that's not brought out immediately, that should be brought out at the forefront. But for some reason, everybody wants to go for the, let's go for the steak first without getting, and we'll eat the appetizer after the steak.
Yeah.
But then you eat the steak and you're so full, you push the appetizer away. So that's what happens in a lot of these things. We don't get the who, what, when, where, and why. We don't get necessarily some specifics or some good corroborative type of testimony. So the night following the shooting, the miners were inside their cabin when they heard strange sounds, including loud screams, whistling, and rocks hitting the roof and walls. Miners claimed a group of creatures surrounded the cabin, throwing large rocks and pounding on the walls. The attack reported lasted several hours, with the miners firing their rifles through the cracks in the cabins and the walls to scare off the creatures. According to Beck, the creatures tried to break into the cabin by pushing on the door and climbing onto the roof. Now that is interesting, because didn't Fred say that the roof had an issue? No, I'm sorry. I'm getting the Rod Moorhead story confused.
No, the cabin was built solid.
Right.
They built it pretty solid, so they weren't really.
I'm sorry. I was thinking of the Ron Moorhead, the Sierra Sound story, because when they had showed up there, their roof had some issues, and they started gathering some stuff to. But
well, with the Ron Moorhead's cabin deal, you can't really even call it a cabin. They just had some logs stacked around a tree to build.
There's Grasshopper. Grasshopper made an interesting comment here. Mark Marcel wrote a book about Ape Canyon and found the original cabin a few years ago. I got to get that book. That should be rare. I got to get that book. That's very interesting.
Well, reports that the original cabin had burned down. I don't know. Maybe I have to read the book. I've not been in that area. I would love to go. I would love to go to some of these areas of these classic encounters. I would love to go to Bluff Creek. That would be cool.
The aftermath: by dawn, the creatures reportedly retreated, allowing the miners to flee the area. They abandoned mining equipment and left. They abandoned their mining equipment and left the canyon deeply shaken by the experience. So the story quickly gained traction in local newspapers. In the late 60s, Beck published a booklet titled "I Fought the Eight Men of Mount St. Helens," in which he detailed the incident. Beck claimed the creatures were not merely physical beings, but also spiritual entities, trying to tie that to his own personal spiritual beliefs.
Yeah, that's where the encounter goes kind of wooey in his book. And, it's theorized that his son probably wrote the book for him and injected that woo. That Fred didn't really have any woo experiences, but his son kind of put that in there.
Again, it's part of, sometimes it's the part of some people's process.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, if he's writing a book, he may have wanted it to be entertaining because
I think it's part of the process. Mind you, the book was written many, many years after the event, right?
Yeah.
So he had a lot of time to go down the rabbit hole in his own mind. Think about it. And we've seen this happen with other people and Bigfoot witnesses. They, look at Dr. Matthew Johnson, right? Who had a very, very solid, creature-like thing. But now, fast forward 20 years later, and, actually now it's, going on almost 40 years later, but fast forward 20 years after the incident, it has started to evolve. Why? Because people have trouble sometimes coming to grips with things. Even to this day, I talk to some witnesses who are still having issues with trying to come to grips. And sometimes it's easier for them in their mind to explain it away as something spiritual, something paranormal, something beyond the norm of just a large primate.
I guess that would depend on how you personally deal with it. Some people deal with it in different ways.
And thank you. Mark's book is entitled "Mountain Devil: The 1924 Ape Canyon Attack and Its Aftermath." I'm going to have to check that out for Google. Kaiju Ninja in 1985 asks a wonderful question. You want to throw that up there? I just want to finish up this one here.
How many encounter stories have you heard where Bigfoot kills someone? Do you think the wilderness hunter story, if true, provoked the Sasquatch to kill, or do you think the Sasquatch wanted to? That's a great question. Well, great questions.
Well, really, the Bauman is the only one that's been really given some interesting credit. There may be a 1 or 2 or 3 that are out there that include a killing, but I don't know the truth of them. I don't know this. Like, I don't know them like the Bauman case.
Yeah.
Of course, the Bauman made Bauman's tale so forwarding is that Theodore Roosevelt actually heard Bauman tell the tale, and he wrote about it in his book, The Wilderness Hunter. And Theodore himself, President Roosevelt himself, had heard some very strange vocalizations in Montana. He was a very skilled and veteran type of hunter.
Yes.
He was a man's man.
Yes. The Wilderness Hunter, great book.
Now,
Roosevelt.
Now, as far as do I believe, in the Wilderness Hunter story, provoked the Sasquatch to kill? Well, they do admit to taking a shot or two at the Sasquatch. They claim they had struck it, but it ran off.
Yeah.
Now, what I find interesting is that revenge could be an anthropomorphic thing, that's something that's a human quality. Revenge or vengeance is a human quality, and it came back and it killed the guy out of what? Revenge or vengeance. When most creatures in the forest is live and let live. Hey, this thing almost killed me. They're gonna run and they're gonna stay away, far away as possible. So it seems almost opposite of that. However, now we have to look at pan troglodytes, the chimpanzees, and they themselves have shown an inkling to take revenge. So is it, if it was an ungulate or a bear or a shark, even say it was something that was happening in the water, I would say likely not. But because we throw that primate element in there, and for those who believe that primate is or Bigfoot is more of a human than it is a pongid type of descendant of primate, they're all primates. So we all have kind of some of the same fluid and thought processes in our head, right? So it's hard to say if it took revenge. I would, does that make it a little more far-fetched? Well, let's face it, could it have been that Bauman just didn't like his partner? May was making a hefty profit, killed his partner, took the pelts, made up a story. That's possible too. You never know. You never know. So,
well, the story is pretty interesting, and the behavior is kind of odd, but the way that they described, they took a shot at it and maybe winged it.
Right.
We don't really know what's going on inside the minds of these creatures. All we know for sure, they do possess problem-solving intelligence. So could they possess emotions like we have? Possibly.
But to me, I don't know. I just don't know. That's a question I can't answer. I'm not in the head of necessarily a Sasquatch,
right? Exactly.
In that particular instance or that particular Sasquatch. Remember, there are rules that all primates live by, and there's habit, and they get more specific as you start coming down the tree, from Homo to genus to all that one, or from genus to order to
Well,
as you end to rather genus to family to the further you get down the line, the more the similarities kind of brachiate a bit.
Well, that's one of the things about doing the treks out in the woods for searching for Bigfoot. If you come across one, you don't know what's going through its mind. You want to try to assign it human emotions or something, but you can't, because you don't know what's going on in the mind of a wild creature.
Okay, so Shirty Hence. Hello, Shirty. Good to see you. You said back in the Ape Canyon days, there were many reports of Bigfoot's killing people. Are there? I haven't seen that. Have you, Chris?
No.
Why aren't there reports of people being killed now? Have they evolved to be more peaceful? back in the day, these reports that you're hearing from of people being killed were usually Native American or First Nations stories. Because when we deal with the Canadian, they call themselves First Nation people. When we deal with the lower 48, our good United States, we say Native American.
There were the red giant people, the red giants that were supposedly killing and eating the Native Americans, and they trapped them in a cave and smoked them out. So, but as far as, with Americans, I don't think that's too many reports.
Hey, Sasquatch Rutch Radio, Billy Willard is in the chat. Hello.
Good to see you, man.
Check out his show Mondays at 9 p.m. Yeah, it's hard to say. Do I think they've gotten more peaceful? No, I think that some of the stories were made up as folklore, just like the infamous story of, the couple going out into the graveyard to be alone. And as they're sitting in the graveyard, they hear this on the roof of the car.
Oh, yeah. Well, to be fair,
there's always that story.
There are stories that come from Alabama about killer Bigfoot.
Right.
And, but, that's the thing is, who was killed? You don't really find that out. There's
okay. No evidence. So Lori says, well, there's a whole town in Alaska that is complete hogwash. That was a story promoted by Alaskan Killer Bigfoot, TV series about Portlock, Alaska. We had Larry Beans Baxter, who lives in that area, was a police officer in that area. The real reason why Portlock closed up was not because of some killer Bigfoot. It was because the industry ran dry. There were other ports that opened up that were more convenient and more accessible to sea traffic. And that's the reason why Portlock closed down. But, leave it to Hollywood to give it a little more colorful flair and let that be sold as the truth. Remember, these are the same folks that brought us, the Russian killer Yeti, where they completely made a mosh of Dyatlov Pass. These are the same people that gave us the mermaid documentary. These are the same people so you have to, or even the Captured Bigfoot. You have starring the infamous, who from the Oyster Club out right. So you have to take each of it with a grain of salt. There was not a town that got dried up or killed out by yes, were there some murders? Yes.
Yeah.
And there was believed to be a serial killer in Portlock at the time.
Yeah. Well, that's not out of the ordinary for Alaska too, because people do get cabin fever.
Right.
And, they do weird things.
Yeah. So there is definitely some stuff. You got to understand what I love. That's why I love doing this show, because people come up and have some of these misnomers. We love to let's set the record straight. This is what the show is about: fact, not fantasy, science, not science fiction. And that's where things get off the rails with this, is that the truth of the matter is that there was no town. Well, trust me, if there was, we would have been talking about it a long time ago.
Didn't that burn on the last episode? Was that Portlock when they were leaving and then it was like on fire? And they're like, oh, look, it's burning down.
Yeah. Laurie says, well, Western town, and oh my God, Pacific Northwest serial killer. Yeah. Why is it that a lot of the serial killers come out of the Pacific Northwest? You ever think of that? There's Ted Bundy, the Green River Killer, who was living out kind of that way was Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber. Israel Keys was raised in the Pacific Northwest in Oregon.
Yeah. Well, it's antisocial areas probably.
Yep, Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer. That's right.
Yeah, well, you're living by yourself, alone, away from people. You're kind of isolated, and people get kind of weird doing that.
So, okay, let's move on a little bit from Fred.
Need that human contact.
Let's move away from Fred Beckaroo and let's so another incident. Wow. Ooh. Yeah.
Nick has a theory.
Only Nick. So there, I'm going to go over two stories. One very well known, and one not so very well known. So we all know the Ford family's Bigfoot encounter in Fouke, Arkansas, formed the foundation of the famous Fouke monster legend. These events, occurring primarily in the early 70s and late 60s, I might add, are among the most detailed and sensational accounts of Bigfoot activity, leading to national fame through media coverage and the cult film Legend of Boggy Creek by Charles B. Pierce in 1972. In 1964, early sightings of reports began in Fouke, Arkansas in 1964 when reports of a strange, large, hairy creature near Fouke, Arkansas began surfacing, describing a bipedal beast roaming the wooded swamps of Boggy Creek. In the late 60s and early 70s, sightings became more frequent, with locals reporting livestock deaths and unusual tracks. On May 2nd, 1971, the Ford family encounter, consisting of Bobby Ford, his wife, and other relatives, moved into a rented house in a rural area of Fouke, Arkansas. On the night of May 2nd, 1971, the family reported hearing strange guttural growls and observing a large, tall, hairy creature with red glowing eyes near their home. Bobby Ford later claimed that the creature attempted to enter the house by smashing through a screen window. At one point, it allegedly grabbed him, resulting injuries as he fled the scene. The family reported finding, 3 toad tracks outside the house and scratches on the window frames. Law enforcement found no definitive proof, but noted the family was visibly shaken, and as well that Bobby Ford was taken to the Texarkana Hospital and treated for, his injuries. Now, mind you, if people don't, Texarkana is actually, even though that's is very, very close by Fouke, Arkansas, it's probably within 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Well,
in the movie, they showed it. It broke through the window on him when he was in the bathroom.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true or they just did that for comedy relief.
I don't know. I would assume there was a fair amount of genuineness to it. I mean, Charles B. Pierce was the kind of guy that was trying to get the real gist of the...
Right. And Shirley Hint says, another question, do Bigfoots have poor aim? They never seem to hit people directly. I guess that's talking about the rock throwing thing.
They actually have very good aim. I've known a couple of researchers who have been pelted with small rocks, not in a very aggressive manner. I'm well, like anything else, I don't think can every Homo sapien throw a baseball the same way? No. So it depends on the individual, I think.
I've never had anything thrown at me. I've heard a rock thrown in the woods, but never directly at me. And from the sound where it hit that tree, if it had been thrown at me and hit me, I'd probably be dead. It was a heck of a pop hit that tree. Never thrown anything at me though.
No. Oh, me plenty of times, including once on this podcast.
Yeah, that was sometime. Was that the Halloween one or it was in October one? I think we did.
I think we did that one at the end of September.
Was it September? Okay.
Yeah.
That was interesting.
I think the Halloween show nothing happened. Par for the course. In the days following the initial encounter, the creature was reportedly seen again near the property, heightening the family's fear. So the Fords moved out of the house soon after, citing fear for their safety. Investigators found large 3-toed tracks near the Ford property. Some guesses were made, but skeptics questioned their authenticity, obviously. Scratches and damage to the house were consistent with the family's story of an attempted break-in. And though some critics say, oh, the incident could have been fabricated. So that is the Ford encounter. And that house wasn't really, and I've had conversations with Lyle about that, and I'm going to get out there. I'm going to get to the Ford property. Next time I'm down that way, I'm going to have Lyle take me out to the actual property, because just to be there, just to say I was there. Let me say this. Let me say this. I see no reason why they would have faked something like this. Right? They weren't people of very much means.
Right.
They had just moved into that house, which in of itself could be the reason why things are going on. This house may have sat dormant for a little while. Creature moved in, nothing's going on. Now all of a sudden there's this buzz of activity going on and around that property.
Right.
And none of the behavior to me necessarily cites aggressiveness, but more just curiosity with, not understanding boundaries, I guess.
Right. The walking around on the porch and jiggling the doorknob and things like that.
Now, let's face it, we've talked about Bigfoot behavior and we've talked about primate behavior, and the Fords were acting like primates behavior perfectly. Was that here they are, their territory is being embarked on, and they're doing all they can to repel what's going on. And that's the case in the next story we're going to talk about. Well, no, the story after next, we're going to talk about the final story of the night. So when I look at something like this, it's this, it's this convergence of all this activity that's going on that's piqued the curiosity. I once dealt with a case out in the Middle Adirondacks, out near out where the Adirondack Express runs. Let me just put it that way. I didn't want to name the community right off the shoot. But they had some activity going on in their backyards, and we don't know why. We moved in. It was quiet for a while, but then all of a sudden this started. What they were doing was taking all their compost, all their leftovers from meals, and they were dumping it in the backyard.
Oh yeah, scrap pile.
Now all of a sudden there's a food source.
Right.
And as we know, primates are scavengers for the most part too. They are creatures of opportunity. If there's something to eat and they can eat it, they will.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think we should point out too that Bobby Ford, even though he was injured with his encounter with that creature, it didn't really attack him. He ran into it.
Correct. He said it grabbed me. In one case it grabbed him, almost grabbed him.
Yeah. Good to see you. But
Shane, I haven't heard that, but I wouldn't be surprised. Shane asked anyone here of the Salt Fork State Park in Ohio was first opened that rangers reported a Bigfoot looking into the ranger building outside through windows, plus rangers seeing Bigfoot on roads. Possible. Like I said, anytime something new like that opens and there's a confluence of activity, you're going to have these strange events. And is it a coincidence? And that's what I'm saying. If the Fords had lived there for 2 years and all of a sudden this started, then I'd be like, no. But the fact is, they just moved in there, and within a week or two, all this stuff started to add up and start to happen. Yeah. And it escalates and it escalates and it escalates. So,
if you live near a national park, get to know the rangers, especially the ones that's been there a while. And through by way of conversation, you can learn a lot of things that's probably not known to the general public.
So let's talk about a very similar case that was going on in the late 60s in, of all places, Vermont. The Gaelic farm in Vermont is often cited in discussions about Bigfoot due to a series of reported encounters that suggest possible Sasquatch activity in that area. Now, I don't know if traveling with Jim is out there, but we have done quite a bunch of research out in that way. And Jim was with me one particular night when we caught that, and Jim had his FLIR.
Yeah.
And that was the same night that we captured a series of pictures of a solitary, upright thermal hit moving. It was on the shoreline, and it moved off the shoreline into the swampy area behind the wooded area. I go down there the next day. Of course, there's no tracks because, number one, there's a lot of stone. But the other thing, too, is so many boats go by there in the morning that the waves, we would have wiped out any track evidence that was there. We just wrote it out. But when I went there, the only way to access that was climbing down 40 feet of rock.
Not something somebody's going to be doing it in the middle of the night.
Yeah, it was about 9:30 at night, 9 o'clock or 9:30 at night, completely pitch black because it's the autumn, fall.
Right.
You know, you're out there and you look and there's nothing. You can't see anybody using a light, right?
Yeah.
You don't hear anything. But then you look and you see it moving around. You see it moving in the thermal. And then what we do is, hey, you okay down there? No response. In fact, the response we got was it moving into the wood line, right, and disappearing. So take that with for you may. That was within a half to quarter mile of the Gaelic farm that I'm about to talk about. So the Gaelic farm is located in rural Vermont, surrounded by dense forest and rugged terrain that makes it an ideal setting. Over several years, the farm's residents and visitors reported a series of unexplained phenomena, including vocalizations. Witnesses described hearing loud guttural howls or screams emanating from the woods, unlike known wildlife in the region. Footprints, large humanoid footprints, were discovered in muddy or snowy areas on the property. Unusual behavior in livestock. Farm animals were said to behave erratically, possibly reacting to unseen predator or intruder. Some witnesses have claimed to see a large bipedal creature at the edge of the forest or moving swiftly through the trees. These sightings often occur at dusk or during the night. And some people have found tree structures of broken branches. Investigators noted peculiar structures made from broken branches and trees in the nearby forest, often associated with Bigfoot behavior. I don't know about that, but because I've been up there plenty of times, never have found a tree structure. But there are things, because there are things that are said publicly. This is my home turf.
Right.
Because as the crow flies, when you stand at the Gaelic farm, you look out and there's the little tributary from the Pulteney River out to East Bay. And right across the way is New York State. Right. And that town is Whitehall.
Were there apple orchards near that area, nearby that farm? No?
Nope. They're probably about a mile away. There's a pretty large cornfield, which coincidentally, the farmer that had the cornfield, and that's in New York, actually had observed a Sasquatch in the cornfield. Now you go about another 3/4 of a mile, kind of north, or kind of rather east, southeast, and you run into A Bear Road, which is where Brian Goslin, the police officer, had that encounter in 76, and that whole series of roads that it was having. Yeah. So all of that area is all connected. In fact, if you stand at the Gaelic Preserve and look across the river, you'll see railroad tracks, and that same area is where Dan Gordon had his sighting in New York in 82, and where in 2003, my two lads, you saw one running up the hill, and I got that one track picture.
Right.
So that whole area is very connected.
Hot area. I just want to holler, hello, Eleanor Taylor, my Kentucky neighbor. Good to see you. Welcome. That whole area has a lot of activity, man. A lot.
Now, let me make a point. There's things about the Gaelic incident that you know, the series that was never made public. I've had, like I said, I've had the opportunity to work years ago with Bill Brand, and Bill had been doing that since the early 70s, and of course with Paul Bartholomew. And both of them were proteges of Dr. Warren Cook, an physical anthropologist at Castleton State University in Vermont.
Yeah.
Who had this penchant for doing these Bigfoot investigations. And yeah, there was reports of the Sasquatch on the Gaelic farmhouse getting up on their porch, rattling their doors, looking in windows, and very similar activity that was going on in Fouke, Arkansas. So
it's kind of weird, though. You know, I mean, I wouldn't consider that a violent activity, though. That would be more like a curiosity thing.
Still behaving badly. I never said they're violent. I said they're behaving badly. Shame on you. Don't be peeking in people's windows now.
Don't be jiggling people's doorknobs, right?
Exactly. You know, don't be toilet paper in their front yard.
But now, you know, the violent behavior that comes from Alabama. We're talking. I've heard those stories about shotguns being wrapped around trees. But the thing is, are they just stories? Did that really happen? Bigfoot, you know, beat up a hunter and wrapped his shotgun around a tree. Come on. Not saying it didn't happen. Just saying that I'd have to see it.
So, why does Bigfoot throw rocks and not their own poo like chimpanzees? You know, I just don't know.
Because that would be evidence. No, how can they know that? How do they know that would be evident? They couldn't know that. They couldn't know that.
Speaking of, let's have a retro moment right now.
Well,
you've got mail.
I don't think the larger primates, well, the gorillas, I don't think they really are known for throwing their poo. That's the smallest.
I tell you what, I have one video up on the channel of one of the primates winging something and smacking his kid right in the head.
Yeah.
But
smaller primates, yeah, they'll throw a handful at you. You gotta watch those little rascals.
Yeah.
But the larger primates are primarily spitters. So yeah, you gotta be careful. You're standing close to the cage. They'll spit on you.
I'm going to stay away from that one. This is a family show.
Yes, this is a family show.
Yes, my mind went there. What a gutter.
Yes, I knew it would.
My mind's in the gutter, I'll tell you.
Thank you.
What in the Sam Hill? I don't know. Shit.
I appreciate you controlling your...
my 12-year-old in me. I'm controlling my inner 12-year-old.
That is true. That is true. And that was another one of the reasons why I quit going to visit my friends at the primate research facility at Alamogordo, because some of them would spit on you if they got the chance.
So Nick says they can get a new toothbrush from their local platypus. I'm sorry, they can't afford one. The bill is too large. Anyway. All right. Yeah. You know what I get for that one? Yeah, I know. You get it. The bill is too large. All right. That's enough of that. See, now we I don't know where Bill finding the trackway is, but and I am getting to your stuff. Like I said, work has been hellacious, and today I had to try to rescue our good buddy Pat Collins's computer. I had to put a video card in for him, and it turned out we turned the computer on and still nothing. And then I realized that his monitor, the power pack on the monitor wasn't working. It was probably his issue, but I don't
know. It probably could have burnt both. It's very possible.
The video cards seem pretty damn good, but you never know. So
Well,
nice thing is he's got a nice brand new video card in there, which is a lot better than the older one he had.
Yeah.
Now he has the ability to put several monitors in.
Always great. It's good to have a good video card in there, especially when you start compiling videos. Makes a big difference.
Okay. Yes. So the Gaelic farm, getting back to that story, is there was a lot of stuff that was not really made public. I was kind of lit in on it, and confirmed. Brand told me about it, and then was later confirmed by Bartholomew, and so very interesting stuff going on out there. So finally, the final item was a little more controversial. This occurred in 2000. It was known as the Siege of Honobia, or for that, I'm pronouncing it like the locals. It's spelled like Honobia, but it's pronounced by the locals as Honobia. Sits in I forget what county in Oklahoma, but near the Arbuckle Mountains. Supposedly Arbuckles are very busy with Bigfoot activity. But the BFRO had received they had received a message from Michael, the uncle, about his brother Tim being harassed by what they believed was a Bigfoot. Family had been experiencing problems for about 2 years with animals prowling at night, stealing deer meat and other from an outdoor shed. Now, mind you, I had a lengthy conversation with Tim, and for many years early in on the Bigfoot forums, Tim was actually in on the forums, believe it or not. And yes, their deer lockers were being raided. Yes, they would go on their porch once in a while. They would rattle the doors, just like had occurred at the Ford residence, just like it had occurred on the Gaelic farm. And again, it's another rural location. And just so you know, the Gaelic farm, just to show that it sits by itself, surrounded by hundreds and hundreds and maybe thousands of acres around it.
Mm-hmm.
One of the largest mountains that you can ever see, that has the largest concentration, coincidentally, of rattlesnakes. You would love it, Chris.
Oh,
as a large, but yet of all my times being out there, and I will admittedly admit tonight that is my research area number 3.
Mm-hmm.
And of all my times out there, I've never seen a rattlesnake.
Well, yeah.
I have seen an 8-foot black corn snake.
Mm-hmm.
That startled me. Like, what the hell? I think just slithered right by me, black, and it had nice the patterns on it, but they were different shades of black. It was really cool.
Usually the corn snakes and chicken snakes, I'll leave them alone. But if there's a rattlesnake around,
right? I was like, oh, that's really cool. And
sorry, all the snake lovers out there. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Chris would be gone. He'd nothing there left but his skivvies.
Don't lead me to your pet rattlesnake. I'll kill it.
So one of the key quotes in the initial message was, "This creature is getting bolder every time it returns. This thing is huge. Walk upright. Smells like a musky urine, burned hair type odor. He repeatedly comes to the back in the early morning hours and after midnight and harasses them until just before dawn." Right. And then there was an escalation. The creature attempted to enter the home, coming onto the porch, messing with the windows and doorknobs. Multiple creatures suspected due to the chattering and screaming from the hills. Tim's wife and children relocated temporarily due to fear. I don't know if you knew that, Chris.
I didn't know they moved.
Yeah, the family did. The wife and they moved off to their moms. Tim fired at one creature. Initially, he thought he hit it, but the blood trail led to a deer kill. So,
well, you know, from when I went back through and reread that most of their activity said it started around 1 or 2 a.m. So
right.
that's very, you know, that's right along with Sasquatch activity.
Well, and it's good to see some new people here in the chat as well. So,
oh yeah.
Well, welcome. We welcome aboard. So we have those particular. So then there was a BFRO investigation. 2 investigators arrived. One named Miles, who is an airline pilot, and Roger Roberts, a veteran private investigator from Oklahoma, along with Roger's father. They discovered peculiarities about a deer kill. The deer's leg was twisted and broken, and it had been carried, not dragged, and organs were removed through an opening between the neck and the rib cage. So, and we've talked about that too, about them punching in a hole into the rib cage and grabbing out the livers.
Yes. Mm-hmm. That's theoretically possible. Yeah.
I believe they did, Mick, eventually, and they kept them away is what it did. They kind of receded a bit with the lights. I've always said this, you know, I used to have my first business cards I had, you know, the 5 things to do. If you see a Sasquatch, don't panic. They're not normally aggressive. You know, when the sighting's over, write down as much as you can. And if it's too overbearing for you, the quickest way to end a Sasquatch encounter is to shine a flashlight. You know, why that is, I don't know. They may not trust that type of device. They see something that shines. You know, mine kind of stayed until I moved the flashlight, and then off it went.
I don't tell people not to panic, Steve, because that's a given. They're going to panic. When I have somebody go out with me, I tell them the first thing, if they do see one, the first thing to remember, don't scream. Don't scream. You know,
and don't run.
Yeah.
Don't run. You know, you're going to feel this, you know, depending on who you are. Me, I got exhilarated. But other people, like when, you know, Pat Collins always yells at me. He goes, I would be out of there quicker than anything if something throws a rock at me. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Me, I laugh. I get exhilarated. I'm like, all right, we're in the neighborhood here. We're right on target. To me, that's exciting. That's why I'm there, right? For this interaction.
Yes.
I don't understand why people go out into the woods and they, you know, to look for Bigfoot, and when they see them, ah! Right.
Well, remember the fight or flight thing, you know, remember.
And that's why I knew, and part of the French, here comes the colorful metaphor of the night. That's how I knew killer Alaskan Bigfoot was bullshit. Because every time something happened, ah! And they'd run away. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm not going to put that up, but you can see what Mick wrote over there.
And I agree, Pancho, that, you know, you can always leave them alone, give them their distance.
Yep. Exactly.
And you know, because they don't want to harm you. They don't, because primates, studies have shown primates of one species rarely, may I point out that, rarely attack species of another primates of another species. Of course, there are cultural differences. There are some groups of chimpanzees that will hunt monkeys, but that's not the norm. The same with people eating monkeys. It's not the norm, and it's taboo. And a lot of who wants to eat monkey brains? Yuck! Right. Oh, you want a monkey leg? Here. No, thank you.
Creepy. That was one of the things that Ollie and the other guy, I can't remember, on Living with the Mech, the Mech gave them monkey hands to eat that were cooked, and they couldn't get over it. Said, "Oh my God, I felt like I was eating a small child or something."
So Here's the key thing about the BFRO investigation. There was a key, what they call a key confrontation night. There was heavy rain that complicated the investigation. Multiple shooting incidents occurred from the porch. Yeah, these guys were popping off rounds from the porch. They would see the eye shines from the porch as they're beaming the forest.
Right.
And they were taking shots at them. That was their solution, was to start shooting them. Maybe they'll go away. Investigator Miles, the pilot, witnessed something with eyes reflecting pinkish red about 7-8 foot high. His quote was, "It was there for just a second in the trees across the road, around 7 or 8 feet tall. It was definitely there, not the reflection of wet leaves or anything like a tower light in the distance." Of course, tower light in the distance, of course, being a pilot, it's probably, a frame of reference that's easy for him. That's why he said it. It's kind of a weird thing to say, but being a pilot, it kind of makes it understand that. Yeah. So what they believe was the root cause analysis was property attached to numerous deer due to Austrian snow peas planted by Tim. So they were planting these snow peas.
Right.
And the deer would come out and get their fill. And that's what they would do. They would shoot the deer. Now they got their meat for the season.
Yeah.
And Tim regularly hunted deer from his porch.
Right.
The theory emerged that the Bigfoot stayed despite gunfire because they were conditioned to expect wounded deer or deceased deer after the shooting, and that would be their way of just grabbing it and go, grab and go. So that was the thought. So they resolved it to stop hunting deer and remove deer meat from the lockers. In other words, just like you would for any invasive creature or pest that you're having. You have an area and you keep getting bear in your yard because you have a garbage can you keep on the south side of the yard. What do? Well, I'm going to move the garbage can inside the garage where it's locked.
Yeah.
And that way the bear can't get it. The bear eventually realizes it's not there anymore and he moves on. Right. Primates would do the same. Increased presence of fish and game vehicles help deter both hunting and creature activity. Because they were calling fish and game. They were calling people as well. The creatures gradually disappeared, though occasionally heard howling from hilltops, and eventually all activity ceased. You take away that food source, you took away their reason for being there.
Well, I wouldn't expect them to stick around if the locals are taking pot shots at them.
Right. So that is the one thing, and when people say to me, I got these things on my property, I will refer to the one in the Adirondacks, and the guy's like, yeah, I'm sitting in my house, and all of a sudden something bangs on the side of the boom, side of my house. And I go out there, and the house is dented, and I may hear screams and howls and all kinds of other things and shadows in the night and all that fun stuff. Why is it there? Why would it be coming there? And then we find out they're leaving all their compostable stuff and their biodegradable stuff out in the backyard, and not too far from that's the reason why we're having that issue. Stop that issue, you'll stop the weirdness.
Take away the food source.
Yeah. And let's just say, for example, what they were experiencing was not a Bigfoot. That it was just their imagination, and the boom in the house could have been a deer, bumping its antlers against the house, and the screams they hear are foxes coming in because they're fine. It's because of the food source. So it doesn't matter. You take away that food source, you're going to take away that problem.
Yeah. Well, I always say, if you're worried about Bigfoot around your house, light up the backyard or light up your yard at night. Make it look like a football stadium. They'll stay away.
Yes, and if you're a football fan, it's a bad day to be a Broncos fan. So,
there's another. Mick says there's another well-known incident of Sasquatch behaving badly. The Chapman incident. That's true. That's true. Yeah.
Remind me of that one, Chris. You remember the Chapman incident?
Yeah. It was the Chapman's children had seen the creature, and then out in the yard, they thought it was a big cow or something. And the mother came out and she covered them with a blanket, and so they would appear larger.
Right. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think they kind of like got out of there, and when they went back later to investigate, the creature had ripped open some barrels of salmon. And,
that's right. Yep.
But that Ruby Chapman. It was the Ruby Creek incident.
Right. Yep.
I don't know if it was Ruby Chapman. I can't remember his wife's name, but it was the Ruby Creek incident.
Right. Yeah.
And the Chapman family.
Yeah. If you had said the Ruby Creek incident, I would have like, oh yeah, I remember that. When you said the Chapman, why does that sound familiar? It's because that was the Ruby Creek name.
But yeah, she was alone with her children, and of course, the big hairy man comes out of the woods, and her being a Native American, she remembered the stories, the tales of what this creature was. So she just kind of covered her children with a blanket. And I don't know if it was to make them appear bigger. That's what I was thinking. But it might have been to hide the children from it because it was considered a bad omen to see one. And she didn't want the children seeing it or it seeing the children.
Yeah, it's a bad omen to go over to Mick's house and he presents a meatloaf for dinner. Anyway,
I don't think it really did anything to them. It did behave badly. It went in and broke up their salmon barrels and stuff. So I guess that would qualify as bad behavior.
Yeah, well, hitting the side of a house, that's bad behavior as well.
Yes. But the Honobia incident, that one was stealing deer meat out of the freezer. So
they had an outdoor deer locker.
Yeah.
They had basically a shed that was, just for the purpose of culling their deer.
Right.
And when they, they would go in there and the deer would be gone. Like, where the hell did it go?
That's pretty rude. Yeah. But when I was looking at that incident on the BFRO website, it says Tim and Michael were trying to kill the animals. Apparently, there was more than one target at some points. I asked Roger on the phone if it was possible these guys are just freaked out and shooting at raccoons in trees. Roger sounded very nervous and didn't want to talk much. He just replied, "No, this is serious business. They've definitely got a problem here." I called back a while later and was only able to talk to Miles and Roger for a few seconds. Miles' last words about what was happening is pretty much shoot to kill at the moment.
Jeez.
I would think that those creatures would have probably bugged out of that area. I mean, if they're getting shot at.
But they were conditioned that the rifles, they were shooting at the deer.
Yeah.
Like, understand that, and that's logical. That's something a primate would do. Like, oh, they're using those to kill deer. Okay. Just like you put a bowl out in the morning, even your dog knows, hey, it's time to eat. Right?
Well, yeah.
So,
I don't know. I think they know what gunfire means. I think they do.
Well, I think it's learned. It's learned. It's not something that's automatic.
Yes. Right. It's not a natural instinct.
And I think it's learned by observation. It's not learned by, hey, watch out for the guns over there. These guys,
or by experience. There's been lots of reports of hunters taking shots at them. There's been report that hunters didn't take a shot at it because they thought it was human. But there have been reports of hunters taking shots at them. And, I'm pretty sure that over time that has been the norm. Especially, today we have gun safety. And most hunters that are well-trained know not to shoot at something unless they know for certain what it is. And that's why I think a lot of people are restrained when they see they're hunting and they see a Bigfoot. But you know, that wasn't always the case. Back in the days, like you know, we can bring up Daniel Boone. Okay, you know, he supposedly shot one in the eyeball, and or he shot one and killed it. A 10-foot tall Yahoo. So you know, back in the old days, if you saw something that scared you, you shot it. It was either that or die. You know, that's if you weren't back during the pioneer days, if you weren't quick on the trigger, you would probably end up 6 feet under.
Yeah.
But today, it's not that much. It's not that way nowadays. A lot of people don't even own a firearm or anything. We have the police to protect us because when seconds determine life and death, the police are only minutes away. Right?
Well,
we
anyway,
won't get on that. We won't get on that.
No. It's been a very. I think we're going to kick at 10:30 tonight.
Okay.
Suddenly, the old man is like.
You know, there's a lot of reports around these creatures. If you have an area in where you've got apple trees, an apple orchard, yeah, when the apples come in, it would be a good time to get out some game.
Yep.
Mick says, "Wouldn't you be on there some damn fool dressed in a fursuit in the wood?" That's true, Mick. That's right. That's why people they restrain themselves from shooting at stuff they don't know exactly what it is.
Right.
And, those guys that would put on a suit and go out in the woods, especially during hunting seasons, aren't too smart. You know, that's they're asking for a Darwin Award right there.
Darwin Award.
Yeah, like the guy, you know, it was unfortunate. He was in where was it? He was the Pacific Northwest. He had a Bigfoot costume on or a gorilla costume on, running across the road to scare people.
Oh, that was either. I think that was in Michigan.
Was it Michigan? Wherever it was, you know, the
guy ran across the highway, got hit by one car, flew into the opposite lane where he got hit by a second car. Both the people that are operating the motor vehicles were in there. They were 18 and 19 years old, both female, and they were both very traumatized over the deal.
That is a trauma that's going to last their lifetime, unfortunately, because of this. I mean, you know, it's unfortunate. The guy's dead.
I mean, can you imagine sitting, being one of those girls, and then you're starting to get over it, and you turn on the TV, and there's a Jack's Links commercial?
Right, exactly.
You know, or Pizza Hut comes out with the Bigfoot pizza, and you know, it's just like constant reminding because, you know, the cultural appropriation of Bigfoot has begun. You know,
well, that guy started out playing a prank. Okay, he was getting laughs. He thought he was hoaxing. You know,
he's getting a laugh, but you know, it's. To me, okay, he's not videotaping it, right?
No.
What's he doing it for? The guy's got.
Just
I don't mean to speak ill of the dead. The guy's got a little friggin'. He's got a bolt loose in his skull because. Whoa! I got him! I mean, you know, what's the end game? Oh, look! There's a newspaper report. Bigfoot. That was me. You know. Oh, you're good. Wow. You know, I don't get it.
It's hard to know what's going on in the mines.
There it is. Randy Lee Tenley was hit and killed in Kalispell, Montana.
Okay.
That's where it was. I knew it was an M state, Michigan.
Unfortunate. You know, and you know, the guy lost his life. That's horrible. But you know, nothing's worse than losing your life, but traumatizing other people for the rest of their lives would be.
Unfortunately, I hate to say, play stupid games. Sometimes you win stupid. You win stupid prizes. You know, and that's the thing. You know, reminds me of the you know, and I think about the Georgia dash cam video, the police dash cam video.
Yeah.
And you know, that in of itself was amazing. You know, and it was like there was a cover up.
Mm-hmm.
Sheriff covered that right up. And I understand why. And that's why I always said like cover ups are not something the federal government does, or it's like no big conspiracy. It's done in very small batches by certain people when it suits them. I'll give you a great example. So in case people don't know the Georgia dash cam video, this is years back ago. I think it happened like a year or maybe the year after Finding Bigfoot went on the air for the first time.
Right.
And it's on the channel. We have a video on I think that video is on the channel somewhere very early on. And we put it out, posted up there.
Right.
And he's driving this woman, giving her a courtesy ride, and they see this large hairy biped running, dodging across the road pretty fast. Yeah. And if you watch the video, it did go pretty fast.
Yeah.
He spins around, he gets out, and he says, "Hey, police department or sheriff's department, identify yourself."
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Nothing is said.
Yeah.
At that point, if I'm in a costume and I got a law enforcement officer out there, I better identify myself. Hey, I'm a human. I'm a human. Right. Here, I'll take the mask off. I'm a human.
Exactly.
Right.
You run the risk of
getting shot because, oh my goodness, it's a wild animal. Bang. Right?
Exactly.
He may come in here. He may call backup. And then I'm going to really get in trouble. Right.
Yep. Exactly.
All right. So when all this hits the news and the video gets released, the sheriff steps in and says, "Oh, well, I drove out to the resident. It was college kids that lived across the street from there, yada, yada, yada." No police report. No criminal investigation report was ever released. It was just his words. No names were ever released. Nobody ever came forward to say, "Yeah, I was a dumbass college student that did that." None of that's happened. And it's been years, right?
Right. Yeah, that was the
Donald,
local authorities.
No. No updates on the two deceased researchers, if they indeed were quote unquote researchers. The word is they went out looking for Bigfoot, right? That doesn't mean they're researchers. Something fun to do. Well, instead of fishing, let's go look for Bigfoot. Who knows? And that was their. Because I think if they were known, we would have found out by now whom they were. If they were really researchers, it would have probably.
I'm looking if there's any updates.
Nah. I even checked, and they weren't from the area that they died in. So it was like they were from Portland. And try looking at the obituaries for anybody that, it's like a mess.
They just give the ages.
But getting back to the Georgia dash cam video, the reason why I think the sheriff did what he did was because he didn't want a bunch of people descending on the area to find the Bigfoot. And of course, the first thing a lot of people think, like park rangers and law enforcement think, oh, there's going to be a lot of people with guns coming in there and they're going to be trigger happy and they're going to be trying to shoot and kill a Bigfoot. And it didn't help that Oklahoma was running that rumor that they were going to put a bounty on Bigfoot and stuff like that. That didn't help either. And that's the kind of stuff that makes research more difficult for all of us.
Cover-ups happen, but it's usually at the local level, the local authorities, because they do not want a bunch of people running around with guns in their woods, around their towns, around their areas. Right. And you can kind of understand that.
It makes a lot of sense why they do that sometimes. Because you don't want your small little community inundated with what they feel are kooks.
Right.
Because let's face it, there are kooks in Bigfoot research. Let's be honest with ourselves.
Yeah.
Hi, Bigfoot. This is a recorder. I'm going to leave it right here. If you don't want to be recorded, just come over here and turn it off.
Yeah.
Kook.
Yeah.
Oh, don't leave a trail cam in Bigfoot's home. You wouldn't like them leaving a Coke.
Okay. But there are cover-ups. There were some cover-ups here locally during that Mammoth Cave incident where that guy took a shot at the Bigfoot.
Yeah.
That was covered up.
Well, they want to downplay it.
Yeah.
They want to downplay it because they don't need a bunch of people running around a
Exactly.
park looking for Bigfoot, because
Exactly.
that's not what they want to be known for.
Nobody
It's bad enough they get enough people in the park looking for Bigfoot that they know about.
Right.
Because I've been there on an expedition with Charlie Raymond in the KBRO, and yeah.
They know they want to keep it quiet.
Right.
Keep everything,
Yeah, we don't want to be known the Salt Fork of Kentucky.
Well, with that,
but you see, Salt Fork embraced it.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Well, you're starting to see little things around, like a little Bigfoot keychains and things like that in the area, and so I think it's starting to catch on a little bit, but mostly the officials, though, they kill the story, or they push it underneath. Yeah, well, we had this report, this guy fired a shot at what he thought was Bigfoot, but everybody's safe. Everybody's safe. It's not happening. Nothing to see here. But they don't tell you the part where the guy was not arrested. They insinuate they investigated it, and that this guy was arrested or something, but he was not arrested. If he was arrested,
he was detained.
If he was arrested, they were charged. There would be
right. The other thing too is I was in fear of my life.
Exactly.
And the other kick is, the thing stood up 7-8 foot tall and yada yada yada. I'm sure that was told to them too.
Yeah, more than likely.
I bet you could foil those that paperwork, but again, that's a federal park. That's a national park, correct? Not a state park.
I think Mammoth Cave is a state park.
It's national.
No, it's national. It's national. Yeah, you're right. But there's some things that happened, like the trailhead, the parking area for that trailhead for the backwoods camping. After that incident, that was demolished. There's no more parking area. Steve and I went there during a late night investigation, and I was like, "Where did it go?" They had been construction equipment in there, and they had demolished that whole parking area. Now, I don't know if they've put up a brand new one since, but the parking area for that trailhead where you go for the backwoods camping is gone, or was gone. I may actually go down that long gravel road and investigate that and see if they've put up a new trailhead or a new parking area. But I bet they haven't. And if you're ever in the area, anybody's ever in the area, that was the White Oak Trail parking. Is where the parking area would have been for the backwoods camping.
Everywhere. Poop.
Also, they shut the Green River Ferry down early.
Yes, that is the most interesting. There's a part where you're driving in the park, you have to actually get on the ferry to get over to the other side of the park.
Mm-hmm.
It's all of about maybe couple hundred feet of water, but
yeah, it's not very long, not very far across. But they don't have a bridge there. You actually have to go across the ferry, or you have to drive about 25-30 minutes around it.
It's really weird.
Yeah, that was scheduled for maintenance. It really was. But after that sighting occurred, where the guy took the shots, the ferry was shut down early, and they supposedly began maintenance early. They didn't want people going across the river for some reason. But, because all that occurred on that other side of the river. So there are some things that's kind of questionable.
Right. But then again, I don't think it's anything that's, like, according to directive number 864.
Yeah.
Hang on, let me get that.
Yeah, nefarious or conspiracy.
Right. In the case that a Bigfoot is sighted on the property, you were to do this.
Right. No.
And then you were to contact the federal government's Bigfoot agency at this number, where Men in Black will descend upon such place and remove said Bigfoot to our secret lab located in
No, more than likely, that was the park manager.
And if you believe that kind of stuff,
you
need a reality check.
Yeah, after that, it was probably more than likely the park manager said, "You guys are going to do some work on the ferry anyway. Just go ahead and start that now. We want to keep people away from that side of the river."
And just to show you, people's extremes. Years ago, I looked at this website, and the guy was trying to say, "Oh, there's FEMA camps everywhere. They're interning people."
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then I was scrolling through, and I said, "FEMA camp in Albany, New York." I'm like, "Oh, really?" So he has a nice satellite picture of the water department, of the Albany City Water Department. And all you can see all the water filtration tanks and everything like that. And then he says, yes, and the Navy positioned a warship nearby. Yeah, that's right. And the Navy positioned a warship nearby. And I look over there and I go, that's the USS Slater. You know what that is? That's a museum. It's an old World War II destroyer escort that's on display that people can take tours. And yeah, it is not owned by the Navy anymore. It's a freaking museum. And this guy is completely off the rails. But there'll be people that read that and flip and believe it.
Right.
So it's not surprising when people get misnomers about the Bigfoot mystery, because there is sites, there is even YouTube programs that will capitalize, clickbaitize the misdirection. That is the real travesty in Bigfoot research. You want to know, the government does not need to cover up the Bigfoot mystery. There are enough fools out there to do it for ourselves by putting up garbage and letting people believe in misinformation.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's some big national conspiracy. I think it's the local authorities.
And even if it was, even if they, if they sat around and decided, let's create this conspiracy to quash Bigfoot. Well, sir, we don't need to. Why is that? Check out this YouTube channel. Yeah, this funny looking guy out in Colorado keeps posting the same videos, every other week that's been out there, and none of them are real, and people are buying the bullshit.
Just go ride this certain tourist train in Colorado.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, man. Oh, well, this has been fun.
Yep.
I've enjoyed talking about the Bigfoot's behaving badly. And we did break into a little conversation about Mammoth Cave. I love talking about Mammoth Cave.
Yes, you do.
Love Mammoth Cave. Live a stone's throw away. River in Kentucky. Always come by, check out the cave. If you consider walking through a hole in the ground exciting, it's probably not. But
well, before we go, I have been working on, and Chris knows. Chris just saw what I've been doing, and I've been working on a lot of stuff. Trying to get stuff done before the busy season comes up. And everybody knows that from about August till the end of August till about November, it gets extremely busy for me between, and then spring, as well, I'll be out in the field, and then autumn, I'll be out in the field again. And then there's the show schedule, which again, I will be going back and speaking at Hocking Hills this year in Ohio. They're moving the venue actually to the county fairgrounds. So it's going to be a real big, nice, more private event, but
more area, right? More room.
But more room. That's right. A lot of acreage, parking will be easier for people. Access will be easier for people. So
I was shocked, thousands and thousands of people. I was shocked.
Right. But now they gotta ship in food trucks. But then again, there were food trucks there last year as well. So,
Right.
so it's all self-sustaining. So that's gonna be a great event. And of course, then 2 weeks later is the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Camping Adventure. And I don't know the speaker lineup for Hocking Hills yet, but I know we're gonna have a lot of the same folks that were there last year at the PI Big, but now we're gonna also have Ron Moorhead, Dr. Jeff Meldrum, and Lyle Blackburn this year. Last year we had Ken Gerhardt. This year we have Lyle Blackburn.
Oh yeah, Lyle's great.
So of course we'll have the Ames guys, from Mountain Monsters. A couple of those guys will be there. Willie and Jeffro will be there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's gonna be a stellar event. It's gonna be a lot of fun. And hey, all I can say is that yeah, it's going to get really, really busy. Hey, Bill, there's finding the trackway. Good to see you. It's going to be a great event. So I'm going to be there. And then of course, Whitehall will be the end of September. And then there may be an event or two that kind of floats in between all those as well. I have no idea, Grant. Gotta ask Lyle that. Well, one interesting about Lyle is he likes driving to his locations. So he may have monster sauce there. Yes, absolutely.
Cool.
I know last year when he went to Hocking Hills, and he may be at Hocking Hills too, he was selling monster sauce there as well. Well, here's the interesting thing about Ron Moorhead. Is that apparently there's a lot more recordings that haven't been released. So I'm hoping that we'll be getting, I know there is a movie, a documentary in the works with Ron Moorhead about the Sierra Sound. And so that that's done. That's going to be directed by our former guest there, an old buddy there, Ed Monge, who was on the show a few years back. So maybe we get Ed back on the show to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, Ron Moorhead's a nice guy. I mean,
Ron is a real nice guy, very soft-spoken guy. Yeah. Doesn't like to create waves. Doesn't start arguments. Doesn't start fights. Doesn't take criticism badly. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
So, and I may differ from some of his opinions on what a Bigfoot may be, but that's okay. He's a good guy, and that's I'm still fascinated about his Sierra Sound stuff, and if I get a chance to talk to him some more, he's been on the show many years ago. He was on the show.
Yeah, he's been on the show.
So
I just wonder, did he ever get a look at the creatures he recorded? That's what I've always wondered. Because I think they were like inside the cabin structure. If you want to call it a cabin, it was a structure.
If I recall, because I do own the first two CDs.
Yeah.
And the first one was very limited to what the sounds were, and the second one had more sounds on it.
Right.
And that one was actually narrated by Ron, and he talks a little bit more. And from what I can recall, I remember him saying that you could see the shadows moving in the wood lines. Okay. Yeah. You could see the figures moving in the wood lines where they were there. So I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I mean the whole quantum thing. Again, that's somebody that's. Like I said, some people, they go off the rails because it's bothering. When somebody goes off the rails, what that tells me is a lot of times that what they experienced was real. I have no doubt that Dr. Matt Johnson had that sighting in Oregon. I don't believe it's not true. He was very consistent telling that story, and then it bothered him. It went to his mind, and I think partly, that's happened to Ron a little bit too. Is that you have this whole series of experiences that you can't explain, and your mind starts going in directions, and you start looking for answers that, when you look for answers without methodology, sometimes it forces you in the wrong directions, and it's easy to get tunnel visioned. even as an investigator, not to I'll bring up a real world case of a case that got tunnel vision was the John Benet Ramsey killing. Right? They focus so much on the parents when they should have been focusing on the broken window, and they should have been focusing on all the other little particulars, right? And as it turned out, they ended up getting a DNA sample that belonged to nobody. It belonged to nobody in the household, right?
Right.
So now they're trying to work up, and I wonder if they've called the guy who caught the Golden State Killer there, Ron Holes. I wonder if, or Paul Holes. I wonder if they got a hold of him to start doing the family genealogy DNA breakdown to try to find out who the killer was of John Benet Ramsey. But they focus so much on the parents there, and that can happen even to professionals. And of course, these were very inexperienced professionals. They were not used to dealing with a murder, let alone a child murder. Right? So when you have something like that, they tend to go like this. We're looking at these people, and they're forgetting about all these other variables out here. That's why nobody's ever been charged with it. That's why nobody's ever been even detained over it. Except that guy that said, "Oh, I did it," but was just a nutcase. Right. So it's very important when to do it, everything, the methodology, and always leave the door open for other examples or for other avenues.
It's good to have an open mind, but you don't want to be so open that you're considering space creatures from Pluto.
Well, remember tenet number 2. Tenet number 1 is keep an open mind. Tenet number 2, keeping an open mind doesn't mean throwing away the science books. Right?
Yeah. Exactly.
So
Bizarro. Oh man. Oh, let me see. Any questions?
Well, Mick, Mick says you're a better man than me. I don't think that Matt Johnson saw anything except in his mind. No, I disagree with you, Mick, because for years, I mean, he had a sighting in the early 90s, and for years, there was 20 years before he went off, 15, 17 years before he went off on the Zorth kick, right? Mm-hmm. That is story, and he had lectures. In fact, he lectured in the same venue as Tom Steenberg. I saw this. It's amazing. And he was a very flesh and blood type guy. Then something got twisted in his head. And to me, that when you get twisted in your head like that, it's a sign that you're suffering from PTSD.
Well, I don't believe there's any chance in God's green earth that he's having meetings with these creatures.
No. Now
there's something in his mind. Yeah.
Right. Now it is. His original, I don't think so. I think now he's trying so hard to, that the mind starts to compensate for this. He's a man of science. What a surprise, right? He's a psychologist. What a surprise. Now he has this sighting.
Yeah.
Right. And now his mind is going askew. You can't judge yourself. You can't be your own doctor a lot of times. There's too much bias.
Well, yeah. And the funny thing about people that's interested in the mind usually have sort of psychological problems of their own.
What are you trying to say there, Bennett?
Well, I'm talking about professionals that give advice and you know what I'm talking about. Not people that wrote a book and did the research.
When Dear Abby was around, I wanted to start a column called Dear Krabby.
Yeah. Oh yeah, just have mean responses, mean letters back to people that write.
Yeah.
Well, you're stupid. You shouldn't do that.
No. But buckle up, Buttercup. Take it like a real, take it like an adult. Put your big boy pants on, will you? Or put
your crabby. You're crabby.
All right, brother. Let's get out of here. Do your thing. I'm gonna let the dog get. He's yelling at me at the other side of the door here.
Well, I just want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. We appreciate you guys, and everybody listening on the podcast. Hey, stop by the YouTube channel at youtube.com/@squatchdtv. And because sometimes we show stuff on here, and it's good to hang out and read the old chats and stuff. You guys in chat kill me. we have the greatest audience we could ever hope to have, and I say that a lot because it's true. And we are so humbled and thankful that you guys would hang out with us. We appreciate you. If it's your first time watching, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and it would just make our day if you could just, smash the like button on the way out. That would be the ultimate thank you. We really appreciate it. And what? Is your office assistant attacking?
No, he just jumped off my lap and took my earphones with me. So, yeah, he doesn't like to be, for whatever reason, he doesn't like being held. But anyway, I want to thank, and happy birthday, Brian, belated. I already wished you on Facebook a happy birthday, but happy belated birthday, Brian. Yeah. Anyway, I want to wish everybody a happy and good, healthy week. We will see you Wednesday night this week at our normal time on Wednesday. Still looking for the time when we're going to be back Friday. Still in the works. I don't know how long it's going to take before I am off the Friday double, but tis what it is. And folks, everybody, like I said, working on a lot of things, and there's going to be a lot of good things coming out. I think the latest project I'm working on, Chris, it's going to be something pretty special.
What we were talking about right before the show.
Right? Yeah. It's one of my better ideas. Probably one of the best ideas. And yeah. So anyway, hope everybody has a great week. We will see you all Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern right here on Squatch-D TV. Everybody be safe. Keep healthy. God bless. And of course, keep on squatching.
We thank you for being here with us on Squatch-D TV. If you haven't taken the time yet, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And oh yes, hit that notification bell too. We don't want you to miss anything. If you really like our content, you should consider becoming a member. And it's really inexpensive and a great way to support not only the show, but honest Bigfoot research. Everyone have a great week. Be safe and God bless. We will see you all here next time on Squatch-D TV. Keep on squatching.